application will help you turn your...
Hello everyone, fix this one.
...with just a flash. From there you...
Oh my God, hi everyone. How are y'all doing? Sorry I'm a little late. Things got a little hectic when it shouldn't have. But anyway, how are you doing? This is Renee Williams. Oh, most gracious Heavenly Father, I give you thanks and to the, let me breathe. Hi y'all, how you doing? This is Renee. We are on step 6, but first I want to give a shout out. What's wrong with my phone? I give a shout out to all the recovering addicts. Can we open a moment of silence for the addicts who still suffer in and outside of these walls? Anyway, I wanted to say thank you all so very much for being a part of my process. Thank God for allowing me to, I can't feel this fan, to be a process of my process. But anyway, give a shout out to the 12 Steps of Narcotics Anonymous program, to the addicts who still suffers in and outside of the walls. And also I want to give thanks to the treatment facilities, everybody who has helped another individual stay clean. Thank you for the treatment of the women's support groups, the guys support group. It's amazing the things that you do to keep other people's safe and to let them know it is help and hope out there. Today we are on step 6. Step 6, we was entirely ready to have God to remove these defects of characters. This step is about willingness. Having an open mind to want to do what's right, to want to get ourselves together, to want to find out the reason why we keep doing the things that we do, and to have that open mind to be willing to listen, to be willing to go through any length we can in order to recover. And that was something that, that I know I had a problem with for years. I wasn't willing, I wasn't open-minded. I didn't know about the literature. I didn't know about the 12-step program. I was lost to all kind of information, at least I thought I was, until I kept using and found that it is a way out. The literature tells us if we want to stop using, no matter what, we can. And that's where I found myself. I was entirely ready. I couldn't do it. I was tired of going around in circles. I was tired of living a double life. I was tired of lying. I was tired of, hey auntie, I was tired of keep telling myself over and over again I was going to stop. But I didn't stop. I kept going and I kept going. So to the addicts, to all the loved ones, to all my peoples who have lost someone to addiction, to overdose, keep your head up, because we as addicts, we are so hard-headed. We don't get it until it's too late. Or we don't know we're in the midst of making the mistakes that took our lives. So in that point, I just wanted to give a shout out to anyone that's lost a child, husband, son, mother, nephew, niece, or cousin to addiction. May God continue to bless you and keep you strong. This step right here, we was entirely. That means we done. We done playing games. I ain't doing it no more. I'm entirely ready to just give it up. I'm entirely ready to let go. You know, I am entirely ready for stop playing games. And most of all, I'm tired of being keep hurting myself. That's the point that I got to. That was the point that made me realize that I couldn't do it no more. That was definitely a big point for me, because I have been using for years, over 30 years and close to 30 years. And I was doing the same thing, you know, over and over again, doing the same thing over and over again. So it's got to this point now. I am entirely ready of the bull crap, of the lying, of the manipulating, you know, falsifying how I feel, you know, learning how to be honest. And that step brought me to that point, learning how to be honest. It says we were entirely ready to have God remove. Remove it. Remove it, God, because I'm not doing a good job at it. I am not doing a good job of removing all these defects of characters of mine. The defects of characters that I picked up. That means things that's wrong, the behaviors, all these defects of character that took me to a point of misusing people, mainly misusing myself. You know, because, you know, they say it's a selfish program, because sometimes we pick up habits and sometimes we get to a point to where can't nobody tell us what to do. I'm not listening. You know, I'm going to continue to use. And that's what I done. I kept using until I got so tired that I just had to give it up. I was entirely ready to have God to move these characters or defects. But you know what about the defects? You know, I didn't know I had picked up so many. I didn't know my personality. You know, I knew I had started lying and started doing things that I shouldn't have done. But I didn't realize that my defects, the things that, you know, my defects that made me do the things that I was doing, the defects of my character had changed. You know, everything had changed. Everything about me had changed. You know, picking up bad habits, going through the length that I went through to get high. You know, sometimes we think that we really got control. Shout out to the convention yesterday. I had a convention yesterday. Renee, you did a real beautiful job. That was the first time I've been to one of your conventions, for the NA program that you were over. But it was really amazing. Good speakers, very wonderful speakers. I thank God for allowing me to be there, to sit there, to see some things, hear some things that I didn't even know about peoples. And, you know, it was just amazing. And I thank God for the NA convention. It was beautiful. Okay, and so when we get to the point of learning about our defects is something that keeps us doing the same thing. You know, that character, that defect of our character keep us doing the same thing over and over again until we get to the point to where we realize it is a problem and we are entirely ready for God to move it all. But can God move it all? Yes, He can. The God of my understanding, once you turn it over and get a spiritual connection, can remove anything that you need to be removed. I know that for a fact. I know He can remove anything that's causing us harm, that's causing us pain. Hey, Robin, that's causing us things in our life. Sometimes, you know, we don't want to look at it. We don't want to look at it. I remember at the convention yesterday, people were speaking about, you know, you are the reason. Peoples are the reason why we stay. People, you all keep us coming to the meeting. You all keep us being honest with ourselves. We play a part, but we have to learn how to get honest with ourselves. We have to learn that, when we get in, when I got entirely ready to have God to remove all these defects of character, I mean, I just gave it to him. I couldn't do it no more. I just messed up my life. I thought my life was messed up. But sometimes we get messed up in order to grow up. Sometimes we have to go through things in order for us to realize we better than that. And God, my understanding had came into my life. He was always in my life, but I didn't use him as if he was in my life. I knew he was there. Hey, Johnson, I knew he was there. But I didn't use him like I supposed to have used him. And that's why it got to the point. It says we entirely, no bull-shucking and jiving, no more lying and cheating and manipulating. We are entirely to give up because we have messed up to the point of no return. I know that I was entirely ready to have him to remove all these defects of character. I know because I kept messing up. I kept doing things. I wasn't accountable. I kept lying to myself. I kept hurting family members. I kept, they say it's a selfish program, and it is, but we also hurt people that we love in the process. In the process, we hurt other people's in the process. Myra, hello, baby. We all, in the process, hurt myself. You all hurt yourself. Shout out to the 12-step program I knew nothing about. I knew nothing about the literature like I know now. I knew nothing about nothing. I was dumbfounded until I started going to meetings, until I started having an open mind and a willingness to listen. And when this step got here, that means from step 1 all the way here, we went through a lot of changes within these steps. We found out a lot of different things about ourselves. One that I knew I had admitted. I knew that I had to surrender. I knew I could not do it because my life had become unmanageable to the point to where I wanted to give up. And we should never want to give up a life that we didn't give. So it got to a point to where, I had to get real and butt-naked truthful and honest. The insane things that I did to get drugs, to get alcohol, to hurt other people, to disgrace myself. So when I got to this one, I was entirely ready. When I worked on these steps for years, and when I got to this one, I was entirely ready. I was entirely ready when I surrendered. I was entirely ready to have God to come into my life and to change whatever he needed to change. But one of the things he needed to change, amongst many things, was a defect of character. My character had became not so good. My character had became some things, and I just didn't like who I was. Defects of character, what I picked up, what I learned how to do, how I became the person that I became, how I picked up bad habits. This step is talking about the defects, the wrongness, the things that coming in your life that's creating other problems. And that defect of character was a change for me that created other problems. And so once I learned how to study it with my sponsor, I had to get a sponsor, but it took me a year to get a sponsor. I remember people telling us, well, you got to get a sponsor and you got to open up, and I wasn't ready. When newcomers come into the program, and to newcomers, whoever come up on this site, or newcomer, or you struggling, keep trying to find a way out. It is hope. It is help out here. It is meetings out here. It's another foundation that you can come in that, that we all feel alike, we all have done alike, we all became alike. You know, in this program, we all have a reason why we're here. And this addiction, this thing called drug addiction, is very powerful. And I had got to a point to where I knew I needed some help, especially with my defects of character. It was out of whack. You know, I just didn't care. You know, the defects, the things that I picked up, the things that I was doing, the manipulating, the lying, and then it became a part of my character. And that was bad, because that is not who I was. The disease of an addiction had caused me to be something that I created, you know, and that defect of character was terrible, because I didn't care about hurting people, so I didn't care about where I went to hurt people. I didn't care about a lot of things, you know, but every day that I get up, I'm so grateful that I didn't use. I don't have to use no matter what. No matter what happens in my life, no matter what I'm going through, no matter what, you know, sometimes people hold us hostage to the things that we used to do and what we did in the past, and they haven't learned to let go. But I've learned that, and I had to learn that too, is that because somebody want to hold me hostage on things I did years ago in the midst of my addiction, and then I had to learn how to let go of it, because I kept holding on because they was hurt or I hurt them. And that was another defect of character that I had to learn how to work and do, was learning how to let go of the things that I had created along with my defect of character, my behavior, and my meanness, my not caring, you know, because hurt make you not care. Hurt make you, hurt just do a lot of things, you know, and I was hurt and you was hurt. Everybody didn't understand the addiction, the disease of an addiction. You must know it is a disease. You must know that. And in the disease, it keeps you bound. You know, you don't have a solid ground to stand on when you study using drugs. So when this part came to I was entirely ready, well, what do I mean when I'm entirely ready? Well, when I was entirely ready, that means that I stopped using. That means I was letting go. That means that I had somebody that was trying to help me, the God of my understanding. That means that, you know, I was entirely ready to stop doing the things that I was doing. I can't. You know, I'm tired. I'm to this point to where I'm tired now. And I'm entirely ready to have God to come into my life. Okay, God, you know what? I've been talking to you since I was a kid, you know, and I didn't know the grace that you brought, that you can bring in a person's life when they're going through or when they're not going through. It's just the midst of you having a God of my understanding in my life. There's somebody that I can talk to. And even when I'm going through, even when I'm not going through, he was my friend, and I realized that. This is why I was entirely ready. I can't speak for nobody else, but I had got entirely ready because I never knew how to let go. I never wanted to let go. I always wanted to be the one that's hurting me, you know, or have the control that I thought I had hurting me. But when it got to a point after working the fifth and the fourth and the third and the second and first step, then I realized I'm ready. I am not going back to using. You know, I know stuff finna happen. You know, I know things is finna be done to me. I know that I have let go because I haven't picked up the defects of characters that I used to have. So I was entirely ready. And I worked on the defects of my character. I worked on that. I worked on all the defects, all the wrong things I was doing, all the behaviors and that I had picked up, and the defect of my character, how it changed me, how it made me, not take things seriously. It made my life unmanageable. Defects of character, things that we pick up, things that we create, behaviors and attitudes and personality, all these different defects of our characters changed us. So when we come into a program of the unknown, we don't realize all the defects of characters that we have created in our lives. We didn't realize all the behaviors and the personalities that came with addiction. Because addiction takes us through a lot of steps in our lives. It creates all these monsters and all these bad habits and all these defects of character. It changes the way we think. It changes the way we live. It changes everything about us. And it even changes how we think. Because we overthink, our thinking come impulsive. I talked about that all the time because that's what happened to me. Because when you come into a recovery, that overthinking, and that sometimes when you're doing good and you're trying to figure out your life, sometimes Satan, while God is working one way, Satan is working another way. So I had to come to a point to know that, I needed to get ready. I needed to let go. And how was I going to do that? How was I going to let go of something that I didn't even know that started so bad, so fast? And I picked up so many habits and behaviors. Then my defects, all my defects of my character had changed in my life due to addiction. So addictions it's not a nice disease. It's really a nasty, evil disease that keep us hurting, and we're dying, and we're lying, and we end up in jail. We end up places that we don't want to because of the addiction. But you know what? I've come too far. Hey, Selena Woods, how you doing? It comes to a point in our lives that we can sit around and we can look at everybody else and we can think, oh, they got it so easy. They got it like that. But it ain't never so easy to stop doing some things that you all created yourself. These defects of character, habits that we picked up, things that we learned how to do to be a part of our defects of character. And I picked up a lot of them, all because of the disease of an addiction. And when I look back over my life, I remember one of my defects of character is when I got hurt. Whenever I got hurt, I would always eat. At 12 years old, when I began to be like 19, I was almost 400 pounds. And then I became 505 pounds. The defect of my character didn't care. I just ate when I was not hungry, ate when I was hungry, ate when I was hurt, ate when I was shamed. All these defects of character built some things in me that I was not ready to let go, because a lot of these defects of character of mine, I thought that I had caused them and created them to protect me, but really they was hurting me. I had to really understand that when we have got to remove defects of character, it's not going to be moved all at one time. It takes time to have God to remove things. It takes time. We can't do this overnight. People can tell their story about how we made it and what we went through and what we had to do, how we had to let go of people's places and things. But it's never easy. It's a working process that we have to continue to work on. I have to always work on me. I have to always have a conversation with me. I have to always talk to the God of my understanding. That's how I became ready, entirely ready to have God to remove all the defects of my character that I had created, and the defects of character, the habits, everything that I had picked up in this defect. These defects I had picked up. How to hold on to anger, how to hate people, how to always act like it wasn't me, it was everybody else. That was a defect of my character that I had built. And I had to learn how I didn't want to continue to have these defects of character. So I asked God and came to God to remove these defects of characters of mine, and I didn't want them back. I didn't want them back. All these defects of character that happened in my life, that I created, that I built, that I knew that I was doing, and I didn't want to stop because of the disease of an addiction. Tired of people looking at me like I was crazy, tired of people talking about me. But then I realized, yesterday when I was talking yesterday, I said some of the same things that happened when we were using, some of the same things still come back while we clean. Only different, we don't use no matter what. We don't hit, we don't take a hit, we don't drink. I can't. I made a promise to the deceased I would never pick it back up again. And so I keep that promise. I made a promise to the God of my understanding that long as you help me get myself together, I'll never pick up again. And I've been saying that for a long, long time until I manifest it to become reality in my life, that I know if I picked up, I got to start all over again, the shame, the guilt. Some of the defects that I call, some of the defects that of my character that I created and brought into my life. And if I go back to using again, I'm going to pick them back up. I'm going to create them all over again. All the things that I worked on to let go, to let God, to let Him know I am entirely ready to let go of all these defects of character of mine that I created, that I built, that I didn't want to let go. I will pick up again, because with this disease, I'm one hit away like anybody else. I don't care how many years you got. I don't care how many days you got. We are not exempt for being one hit away from going back to the disease of an addiction. And the disease is mighty powerful because it keeps us when things, the main thing that I knew, when I weighed 505 pounds, nobody really knew how much I weighed but the doctor and me and my family. And all that weight that I had carried was a lot of parts of my defects of character. Picking up pain, holding on pain, not letting go of hurt. And my defects of character came into my life at an early stage due to the things I have seen, the trauma I have been in, and the things that I learned not to let go and hold on to. And one of my defects was to keep eating because that was the way that made me feel good about myself. But the defects didn't ensure me that it was going to cause other problems. So the defect of my character is I kept building them. I kept building all the things I'd done, the ugly things I'd done, how it created me, how it made me think, defects of how I looked at people, how I judged people, how I reacted to people, And I remember when I started having health problems due to the addiction, and due to the diabetes, due to the overeating, due to the depression, due to the overthinking, due to all the pain I was going through, I realized one of my defects of characters was it was okay for me to hurt myself. And I kept that defect of my characters. I didn't care about hurting myself until it got back to I was sickly a lot, and I was getting high a lot. And I remember when the doctor was telling me that, Renee, if you don't stop, you would have diabetes, which I'd already had diabetes, but he said diabetes would kill you or you would lose something. And I did. I lost a kidney, but when I lost the kidney, I was clean. I was clean, and I had been working a program, and I was real proud of myself, but all chaotic, and some of my defects of character started to come back in, and I noticed it right away, and I started working on it. Hey, Selena, my sister Evangelist Green, she comes on at Tuesday night, and I'm her biggest fan, and she know the word. So if y'all not doing anything, give her a shout out. But I love this step because it made me entirely ready to have God remove some things that I thought I was safe with these defects. Defects of what? Defects of holding on to stuff that I don't want to let go of. Defects of not admitting when I'm wrong. Holding on to that. Not admitting that I played a part in my defects of character. So when I realized that this step wasn't just about defects, it was about entirely removing and working on and letting go of everything that we had created that we thought was in a safe place. Our defects of characters. Our characters is really who we are. Our characters, what build us up to lie. Our characters would build us up to steal. The same character that did all of that is the same defective character. We can change our life and our character become good. So my character is better now than it's ever been because I removed all the ugly defects of my character. I don't want to pick up them habits. I don't want to be carrying all these defects of my characters in my life like I used to. And it becomes many. When you start building up all these defects that you created, like the defects of holding on to carrying resentments, how you thought you didn't have to have no hope. That was I held on to that. How I didn't want to do better, I held on to that. How you can't tell me what to do, I held on to that defect of character. Because to me, I was safe holding on to that because in my disease of an addiction, I created all these defects of character and it became who I was. And once it all boiled down, I didn't like who I was. I didn't like that I was failing me. I had created things to hurt me and fail me, and I didn't like it. So I had came to a point in my life that I know that I needed help. I know that I had to come to a place in my life that I had to stop. I knew I had to go through some changes to keep myself in a better situation. So as I got to the point realizing that I got to do something. Because if I don't do something, I'm going to pick up some more of some bad defects, characters in my life. And then I'm going to create some more things in my life that's going to change my whole character. I'm going to be something really bad or really different or really worse than what I was. So when you get to these steps, you have to really work on this step. You're going to have to really work on these steps. And when I got to this step, I was kind of broken. I was clean. I ain't gonna lie to you. I was clean, but I was still broken because even though I was clean, I still realized that I had did a lot of stuff to me. I created a lot of habits and a lot of things that I shouldn't have picked up. I had created up a lot of personalities that I thought was helping me through my addiction, but it was only causing me more harm and more pain. And I had to learn that the disease of an addiction has no boundaries. It don't care. It don't care how long you've been clean. It don't care how old you are. It don't care what you have created. It don't care about the money you make. It don't care about the good job you have. It don't care about nothing. It don't care about how you worked on to change your life. The disease of an addiction comes to kill, steal, and destroy, and that's its purpose. And so once I learned that that's what was going on, the disease is a disease, and you have to treat it like it's a disease. We have to use the medicine that we know how to use, and that's never pick up again. And I haven't picked up, and I don't want to pick up. Everything is, okay with me. Everything I see that I needed to work on was a part of my defective character, and I did. I never let people really take me off my square. I might get a little boisterous and say something, but I mean, like, picking up a habit where, I don't give a doggone. I can just go back and use again. That's not going to solve nothing. I'm heard about a couple of friends of mine that choose to go back to using. But see, this is a selfish program, so therefore I have to keep the focus on me. I can't focus on the ones who went back out and used. How you want to keep trying? I know that all the pain I tell you about and all the things I went through, why would I want to go and pick that up again? I can't afford to do that. My life is still is important now. My life is very important that I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to create no more pain, no more problems, no more. I don't want to use all the energy that I instilled in keeping me clean and then take that same energy that I built up to help save me, to take that same energy to go back to help kill me. So I know the difference today. I know the difference on what I want and what I need in my life. I know that. And what I don't need is all them defects of characters pulling me one way, telling me this and get it in my head. So I had to work on all of sometimes y'all need to look in the dictionary and read up on defects. What caused us to do the things? Why did we stay so long? Why we keep doing? Why did we build these different characters up in our lives? Why did we hold on to them so long? And I held on to mine for a long time. One of the ones that I held on for a long time was pain. I didn't want nobody to know I was a pain. That became a part of my defective character. And I used that to benefit me, but it was hurting me. So now I'm at a point where I done got in my life, I'm in my life, and I'm entirely ready now. Because see, once we admit and we surrender that we are powerless over drugs and that our lives have become unmanageable, and then I come to a point to believe that power greater than myself could restore me to what I lost, restore me to some sanity. I made a decision to turn my life over to Him. I couldn't do it no more. I had to surrender. I had to admit. I had to humbly get honest and to talk to God like He was sitting right in front of me, that, I made some mistakes, and some mistakes that I don't think I can ever correct. And I've hurt some people that I don't think that could ever forgive me. But then I had to learn how to forgive myself before I can get an understanding of how people can forgive me. It was all about me forgiving myself for everything. When I got to step 6, admitting to God, step 5, admitting to people, admitting to God the things that I have done. In step 5, then I come down to step 6. I'm entirely ready, God. I'm so humbly entirely ready to where I'm not fighting no more. Ain't no use of me fighting. Ain't no use of making excuses. Ain't no use of questioning me no more. I became my worst enemy in this addiction. And now I know how, and now I know why I am entirely ready, because you opened my eyes to a lot of things that I did not want to see or did not care to see. And so I'm entirely ready. You tell me what to do, what I need to do. One thing I needed to do was continue to go to meetings and continue to have a support system in my life that could help me. Because soon as you stop going to meetings and stop being seen and stop doing the things you used to do, you better watch out, because you'll find yourself in complacement of picking up your own self-will. And so that's why I always continue to do the things that I normally do to keep me safe. Keep going to me, keep talking to my sponsors, still go to speakathon, still go to meetings. Yesterday I went to a speakathon. I told y'all when I first got on here, it was very awesome, because there were some things that I learned about some people that been in the program that I didn't even know that was in the program, but always was around the program doing other things. But he was battling, he was going through too, and I learned some things about some other people that, when I came into treatment, I learned that the only way that you're going to do better and to heal yourself, to get better, is for you to put in some work to do all that. You can't just sit back and think everything going to get like you want it and you ain't worked on nothing to get it. That ain't going to come that way. Every time little bitty things, every time, when I look at this step, when I was entirely ready for Him to remove all these characters of defects of characters, He had to work on me. He had to find out and help me work on me and help change the defects of characters that caused me damage in my life, and work on my attitude and my behavior, and my personality. It's a lot come with these steps that you have to really work on. And some people don't be willing to work on steps. They just go through them or they look at them, but they don't never let it become a part of their lives. And that's what happened when I was entirely ready to have God to remove these defects of character. I was ready because I was tired. I had did so many things and had caused so much pain to myself. And I had built up so many defects of my character in this relationship with me that I was horrified to know all the defects of characters that I had did in my life and became a part of my character. So I had to work on me. And I still work on me. You don't think because you do a little bit here and a little bit there, you're done. This is a constantly everyday thing. The way we think was a part of my defective character. Because I didn't used to think right, So now I'm at a better place in my life to where I understand the 12 steps. I understand the basic book. I understand. I read a lot. And I intake a lot. but I really act out a lot sometimes on the defects of characters that I thought I had still kept, but I realized I let go of that. When I was entirely ready to have God to remove all of this, this is what I worked on. I worked on my defects of character. How I can cuss you out. How you piss me off and I go off on you. Or how I'm short-tempered and don't have no patience. That became a part of my character. Or how I can hold on to resentments and not let go and hold on to people doing things that hurted me. But forgetting about the disease of an addiction that I was battling with, that I've been hurting people all through my addiction. But that defective character had made me think that everything that I was doing was okay. It was satisfying to me, but it wasn't. Because once you get clean, you can see all the defects of character that came into your life and that changed your attitude, your behaviors, your shortcomings, your things that you needed to work on that you were not working on. So recovery has been good. It's been very good to me. I take it not for granted. I take it as a blessing because I have worked on so much about me till once I got clean, I didn't know that I had so many defects of characters that I had brought into my life that I had to slowly, you heard what I said, slowly work on. You ain't going to work on because, hey, we didn't get in here and become perfect. We just started learning how to get better. You know, better and not lying, and better than not holding on to stuff that we can't control. You know, so my life has got better. Yeah, you know, I look at how I used to didn't take care of myself, you know, then I just look at every day. Sometimes I look at all the clothes that I have. You know, to you it's material things, but to me it is material things. But I remember when I was using, you know, at some point in life I had got to where I didn't care how I looked, how I think, how I used, you know, how I didn't comb my hair, how I didn't take care of my hygiene, you know, and that's a part of the disease. And once we become clean, we should be grateful for the things that we have learned and picked up and restored in our life to get us into a better place of thinking and living and controlling our fears and our atmospheres, having a responsibility to know when things is not right or things don't look good, to have a responsibility of knowing that we have come to a place in our life that we must change. We have changed while we got the time to change. And you know, through the grace of God, as I understand him, he's a man that have always checked me and told me about me. But it was a time in my life I didn't pay attention. I didn't hear him. I didn't care to hear him. But now everything I do is to hear him. He talks to me when I'm sitting talking to somebody else. You will find that odd, but that's how he do me. I can be holding a conversation with somebody else and he's talking to me in my head and in my ear. And it ain't about bad things. It's about things that I need to be aware and the things that I need to have accountability on about whoever I'm talking to or whoever my surrounding is in. I've just came to a place in my life that I know that I had got to where I was entirely ready to remove everything that was not good about me. And he helped me with that. He sure enough helped me with it because I'm in a place in my life, the things that I used to do and say and think, I don't do that no more. You know, I try to figure out every negativity to bring something good out of it. You know, but sometimes the peoples that we have around us too, I had to learn that they can bring on a lot of negativities in our lives and they don't even see it, but we are much aware of what's going on in our lives that we see everything. You know, I'm at a point where I see everything. Every decision I made don't mean it's got to be a good decision. You know, because I have to always remember I didn't get perfect. I just got a little better at the situation that I'm in or that I'm doing. So I've come to a place in my life to realize that, you know, I'm grateful for everything that I have, everything that I got, and everything that I have done in my life. That was step 6. I hope I have put a input on you. And sometimes go and look up defects of characters and see what your characters were and why was they defects of your characters. And then you'll understand this step and get ready to let go of them things that's keeping you bound and hostage in your life. But I thank y'all so very much. You know, it's been a blessed week, a long week, a beautiful week. And I thank God for keeping us again clean in our right mind. We safe. We ain't been hurt. You know, all the crazy stuff that's going on in the world today, you know, we still here. So may God continue to bless you. Thank you for being a part of my process in my life, because we all need each other. We need somebody all the time. So thank God for you all. Thank you for letting me come into your living room, your house, your car, your bedroom. Thank all the emails. And to this one person, yes, you can do that. And this person knows I told her that I would give her an answer. I would not call out her name, but yes, you can do that. And I will help you. So that's my message to you. I told you I would give it to you on here, and I just did. May God continue to bless you, keep you safe, and stay up under His blessings. And thank y'all so very much. I see y'all next week. Next week we are on step 7, humbly asking Him to remove our shortcomings. That's a good one too. Removing the shortcomings in our lives. May God continue to bless you, and do something nice and kind for someone to buy today. It always makes a difference. Talk to you later. Bye. Renee.